The stars looked different when you knew death was coming toward them. Captain Deho stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride, watching the empty space ahead. His ship was alone in the dark, waiting for an enemy that would arrive soon. Behind him, the crew worked at their stations. They had been his team for 3 years now. Navigator Sujin sat at her post, checking the star maps again and again. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, but Deho could see she was nervous. Weapons Officer Boram cleaned her glasses for the 5th time in an hour. Chief Engineer Taemin kept walking between his screens, making sure every system was ready. The Soul's Pride was not like other human ships. It was bigger, stranger, and carried secrets that even most humans did not know about. From the outside, it looked like a normal warship, long and gray with weapon ports along the sides and thick armor plates covering the hull. But inside, deep in the heart of the ship, something waited that had never been used in real battle. "Captain," Sujin called out softly. "Long-range sensors are picking up something big. Really big." Deho walked over to her station. The screen showed dots of light moving through space. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They were still far away, but they were coming toward Earth's outer colonies at high speed. "How many?" he asked. Sujin's voice was quiet. 847 ships, sir. All of them warships. Some of them are huge." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone had stopped working to listen. 800 ships against one. It should have been hopeless. Any normal captain would have run away or called for help. But Deho just nodded. "Time until they reach us?" 6 hours, Captain." "Good, that gives us time to get ready." He turned to face his crew. "Everyone knows what we're here to do. This ship was built for this moment. We are going to show these aliens what humans can really do." Boram looked up from her weapons controls. "Sir, I've never fought aliens before." "What are they like?" "According to the reports, they call themselves the Valkyrie Hegemony," Deho said. "They have conquered 17 different star systems. They always win because they have more ships and better technology than anyone else. They think war is about who has the biggest guns and the strongest shields. And they're wrong," asked Taemin from his engineering station. Deho smiled for the first time that day. "Very wrong. They think like most species do. They build bigger ships, stronger weapons, thicker armor. But humans think differently. We don't just build better tools. We change what tools can be." He walked to the center of the bridge and pressed a button. The main screen lit up, showing the inside of the ship. Deep below the crew quarters, past the weapon storage and the engine rooms, something incredible waited in the darkness. "The Soul's Pride is not just a warship," Deho said. "It's humanity's first stellar forge. We didn't just build weapons to fight with. We built a machine that can create stars." The crew stared at the screen. Even though they had trained with the ship for months, seeing the stellar forge still took their breath away. It looked like a small sun trapped inside metal walls. Glowing pipes carried super-hot gas around a central chamber, where temperatures reached millions of degrees. The whole system was bigger than most space stations. "The aliens will see one ship," Deho continued. "They will think this is easy. They have done this before many times. They arrive with their big fleet, demand surrender, then destroy anyone who fights back. But they have never fought humans before." Sujin turned from her controls. "Captain, what makes us so different?" "Other species must have tried to fight them. Other species try to fight the Valkyrie the same way the Valkyrie fight everyone else," Deho explained. "Ship against ship, weapon against weapon." But humans learned something important a long time ago. The best way to win a fight is to make sure your enemy doesn't understand what kind of fight they're really in. Taemin was looking at his engineering displays. The stellar forge was ready, but it was turned off. Starting it would take time and a lot of power. "Sir, when do you want me to begin the startup sequence?" "Not yet. Let them get closer first. Let them see our ship and think they understand what's about to happen." The hours passed slowly. The alien fleet kept coming closer. The Soul's Pride waited in space like a metal island in an ocean of stars. The crew checked their systems again and again. Everyone knew their job, but this was different from training. This was real. When the aliens were 2 hours away, their leader sent a message. The communication came through the ship's speakers in a strange, clicking language. Then the computer translated it into human speech. "Human vessel, this is Fleet Admiral Thexmar of the Valkyrie Hegemony. You are in our path to conquest. Move aside or be destroyed. You have one of your time units to decide." Deho sat in his captain's chair and thought for a moment. Then he signaled to Boram to open a channel back to the aliens. This is Captain Deho of the human ship Soul's Pride. This is human space. You are not welcome here. Turn around and leave, or learn what happens when you threaten Earth." The alien's laughter came through the speakers. It sounded like metal scraping against stone. "One small ship against my entire fleet? Your species must be even more stupid than our report said. Prepare to die, human." The communication ended. Deho stood up and looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. "Taemin, begin the Stellar Forge startup sequence. Sujin, plot intercept courses for all hostile vessels. Boram, charge all weapon systems. Everyone else prepare for battle stations." "Yes, sir," came the replies from around the bridge. As the crew began their final preparations, Deho looked out at the approaching alien fleet. Soon they would learn that humans did not fight wars the way other species did. Soon they would discover that the small ship waiting for them was not just a warship. It was something new, something that would change how wars were fought forever. The stellar forge deep inside the Soul's Pride began to wake up. The Velkari fleet moved through space like a dark cloud of metal and death. 847 ships spread out in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. At the center of the fleet, Admiral Thexmar stood in his command chamber, watching the screens that showed him everything. He was tall, even for a Velkari, with 4 arms and skin that looked like gray stone. His species had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They knew how to conquer other worlds, how to break enemy fleets, how to make entire species surrender without firing a shot. It was simple. You brought more ships than the enemy had. You showed them how hopeless their situation was. Then they gave up. "Admiral," called his communications officer, a younger Velkari named Vextol. "We are approaching the human vessel. It has not moved." Thexmar looked at the main screen. There, floating in space ahead of his fleet, was a single human ship. It was bigger than most, but still tiny compared to his dreadnoughts. The humans had named it Soul's Pride according to their intelligence reports. "One ship," Thexmar said to his officers, "against our entire fleet. Either the humans are completely insane, or they are trying to surrender in a very strange way." His weapons officer, a veteran warrior called Kexmar, studied the human vessel. "Admiral, their ship is not broadcasting surrender signals. Our scanners show their weapons are powered up and ready to fire." "Interesting." Thexmar walked closer to the screen. "So they want to fight. How many humans can fit on a ship that size? Maybe 500, sir? Possibly 1,000. Thexmar made the clicking sound that his species used for laughter. 1,000 humans against our 4 million warriors. This will be over very quickly." The human ship was strange to look at. Most species built their warships to look dangerous and powerful, long and sharp, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. But the Soul's Pride looked different. It was wider than it was long, with smooth curves instead of sharp edges. Parts of it seemed to stick out in odd places, like someone had built several different ships and stuck them together. "Sir," Vextol said, "the human captain is requesting to speak with you." "Put him through. Let's see what these humans have to say before we destroy them." The main screen changed to show the bridge of the human ship. Thexmar expected to see a warrior in battle armor, like most species had. Instead, he saw a calm-looking human in a simple uniform. The human had dark hair and steady eyes. He did not look afraid. "I am Captain Deho of the human vessel Soul's Pride," the human said. His voice was translated by the ship's computers. "You are entering human space without permission. I am ordering you to turn around and leave immediately." Thexmar's officers looked at each other in surprise. This small human was ordering them to leave? The Admiral made his clicking laugh sound again. "Human Captain," Thexmar said. "I am Fleet Admiral Thexmar of the Velkari hegemony. We have conquered 17 star systems. We have destroyed the fleets of dozens of species. You have 1 small ship. We have 847. Surrender now, and we will make your death quick." The human captain did not change expression. "Admiral, you have made a mistake. You think this is about how many ships you have. You think war is about who has the biggest weapons and the thickest armor. Is it not?" Thexmar asked, curious despite himself. "No," Captain Deho said quietly. "War is about understanding. You don't understand what you're really fighting." Behind the human captain, Thexmar could see other humans working at their stations. They moved with calm efficiency, like they had done this many times before. But that was impossible. According to Velkari intelligence, humans had never fought a space war before. "Explain to me, human," Thexmar said, "what I don't understand." Captain Deho smiled. It was not a happy smile. You understand how to build ships and weapons. You understand how to organize fleets and plan battles, but you don't understand what humans do when we are threatened. And what is that? We changed the rules. The communication ended. The screen went back to showing the human ship floating in space. Thexmar stared at it for a moment, then turned to his officers. What did he mean by changing the rules? Kexmar checked his weapons displays. Unknown, sir. But our scanners are picking up some strange readings from their ship. The energy output is much higher than it should be for a vessel that size. How much higher? 3 times what our computers calculate it should be. And it's growing. Thexmar felt the first small worry in his mind. In all his years of conquest, he had never met an enemy that seemed so calm when facing impossible odds. Every other species had either surrendered immediately or fought desperately. This human captain acted like he had a plan. Sir, Vextool called out, the human ship is broadcasting something. Not a communication. Some kind of wide-spectrum signal. What does it say? The communications officer worked at his controls for a moment. It's strange, sir. It appears to be music. Human music. Thexmar listened as soft sounds came through the ship's speakers. It was unlike Velkari music, which was harsh and rhythmic, designed to inspire warriors in battle. This was gentle and sad, like a farewell song. They're playing funeral music, he realized. But whose funeral? On his tactical screens, the Velkari fleet continued its approach. His ships moved into attack formation, weapons charging, shields at maximum power. It should have been a routine battle. The humans would fire their primitive weapons, accomplish nothing, and then be destroyed by overwhelming firepower. But something felt wrong. The human ship just sat there waiting. Its energy readings kept climbing higher. Parts of its hull seemed to be moving, though Thexmar could not tell what was happening. Admiral, Kexmar said, his voice worried now. I recommend we begin our attack immediately. Whatever the humans are doing, we should not let them finish it. Thexmar looked at the human ship one more time. It still looked small and fragile compared to his mighty fleet. But Captain Deho's words echoed in his mind. We change the rules. All ships, he commanded. Prepare for immediate assault. Target the human vessel. Fire on my command. 847 Velkari warships turned their weapons toward the Soul's Pride. Enough firepower to destroy a small moon focused on one enemy ship. It should have been the end of the battle before it even began. But deep inside the human ship, something was waking up. Something that would show the Velkari that humans fought wars in ways they had never imagined. Deep inside the Soul's Pride, Chief Engineer Taman watched his screens with intense focus. Numbers scrolled past faster than most people could read, but he understood everyone. Temperature readings, pressure levels, magnetic field strength, plasma density. All the measurements that told him whether humanity's greatest secret was working properly. Captain, he called over the ship's communication system. Stellar Forge is at 30% power and climbing. All systems are green. On the bridge above, Captain Deho nodded. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with the calm precision of people who had trained for this moment. Their entire careers. Navigator Sujin plotted courses through space that most computers said were impossible. Weapons Officer Boram charged systems that did not appear on any alien database. Tactical Officer Jin A prepared to coordinate attacks using forces that other species had never learned to control. Sir, Jin A reported, the Velkari fleet is moving into attack formation. They have us completely surrounded. Good, Deho said calmly. That will make this easier. Admiral Thexmar watched from his command ship as his fleet took position around the lone human vessel. This was how every battle should end before it began. Superior numbers, superior firepower, superior technology. The humans would realize how hopeless their situation was and surrender, or they would die quickly. All ships report ready to fire, Admiral, his weapons officer announced. Excellent. Target their engines first. I want to disable them, not destroy them completely. We need some humans alive for questioning. But as Thexmar gave his orders, something impossible began to happen. The human ship started to change. What looked like solid metal hull plates began to slide apart, revealing structures underneath that made no sense to Velkari eyes. Admiral, his science officer called out, voice tight with confusion. The human vessel is opening up, like some kind of flower. Thexmar stared at the main screen. The Soul's Pride was transforming before his eyes. The smooth outer hull split into dozens of sections that moved outward on mechanical arms. Underneath, where the ship's interior should have been, something glowed with a light brighter than most stars. What are we looking at? He demanded. Unknown, sir. Energy readings are off all our scales. Whatever they have inside that ship is producing more power than our entire fleet combined. On the Soul's Pride, Taman watched his instruments with growing excitement. The stellar forge was working exactly as designed. The artificial star at the ship's heart burned clean and bright, contained by magnetic fields stronger than anything that existed in nature. Pipes carried plasma hotter than the surface of a sun to the ship's new weapon systems. Stellar forge at 60% and stable, he reported. Captain, we are ready to show them what we can do. Deho stood up from his captain's chair and walked to the center of the bridge. Around him, displays showed the Velkari fleet closing in, 800 ships against one. Under normal circumstances, it would be a massacre. But these were not normal circumstances. Sujin, are your calculations ready? Yes, sir. I have plotted optimal vectors for gravitational manipulation. We can affect local spacetime in a sphere approximately 50,000 kilometers in diameter. BORAM, weapon status. Gravity lance arrays charged and ready, Captain. Mass conversion chambers are online. We can create and launch stellar matter on your command. GNA communications. All frequencies monitored, sir. I can coordinate our attacks with precision timing. Deho nodded and turned to face the main screen, where Admiral Thexmar's face appeared again. Human Captain, the Velkari Admiral said. What is your ship doing? Our sensors cannot identify the technology you are using. Admiral, Deho replied calmly. Your species has spent thousands of years learning to build better ships and bigger weapons. You think war is about metal and energy beams, but humans learned something different. Which is what? We learned that the universe itself can be a weapon. Before Thexamar could respond, the Soul's Pride began to demonstrate what humans meant by changing the rules of war. The stellar forge at the ship's heart pulsed once like a giant heartbeat. Energy flowed through the ship's new configuration, powering systems that worked according to principles the Velkari had never imagined. Navigator Su Jin activated her gravitational manipulation array. Space around the Soul's Pride began to bend and twist. The straight lines that Velkari ships used for navigation became curves. The empty vacuum between ships became thick and resistant like flying through honey. Admiral, Thexmar's helmsman called out. Something is wrong with our navigation systems. Space itself seems to be moving. Before anyone could answer, BORAM fired the first gravity lance. It was not like any weapon the Velkari had ever seen. Instead of energy or projectiles, the Soul's Pride launched pure gravitational force. A beam of bent space-time struck the lead Velkari destroyer, and the ship simply folded in half as its own mass was turned against it. Impossible, Thexmar whispered, watching one of his ships crumple like paper. But the humans were just getting started. The stellar forge created a ball of plasma as hot as a star's core, contained in a bubble of controlled gravity. Sujin calculated the perfect trajectory, and the Soul's Pride launched it toward the center of the Velkari fleet. The artificial star moved slowly through space, growing larger as it fed on cosmic radiation and dark matter. Velkari ships tried to shoot it down, but their energy weapons only made it stronger. When it reached the center of their formation, it did not explode. It became a real star. For a few seconds, space around the Velkari fleet was filled with the light and heat of stellar fire. Ships that came too close had their hulls melted. Others were caught in the new star's gravity field and pulled together, colliding with each other as they tried to escape. This is impossible, Thexmar shouted at his officers. Stars cannot be created artificially. The energy requirements alone would be greater than most civilizations produce in a year. Sir, his science officer replied, voice shaking. According to our sensors, the human ship is operating at only 12% of its total capacity. Thexmar felt something he had never experienced before in battle. Fear. Not just concern or worry, but pure terror at facing something completely beyond his understanding. His fleet was being destroyed by weapons that should not exist, used by a species that had been classified as primitive. On the Soul's Pride, Captain Deho watched the results of their first demonstration. 50 Velkari ships destroyed in less than 2 minutes. The remaining vessels were scattered, their formations broken, their commanders confused and frightened. Taemin, he called down to engineering. How are our systems holding up? Perfect, sir. The stellar forge is running smooth as silk. We could keep this up for hours if necessary. Jinne, any communications from the Velkari fleet? Yes, sir. Multiple ships are requesting instructions from their admiral. Some are asking permission to retreat. Deho nodded. The aliens were beginning to understand that this was not the kind of battle they had trained for, but the demonstration was not over yet. Humanity had more to show them. Boram, prepare the mass conversion arrays. Let's give them something else to think about. The Soul's Pride began to change again, its hull sections rearranging themselves into new configurations. The stellar forge pulsed brighter, feeding power to weapon systems that treated the fundamental forces of physics as tools to be used. Admiral Thexmar stared at the transformed human ship and realized that everything the Velkari thought they knew about warfare had just become obsolete. Admiral Thexmar had commanded fleets for 30 years. He had seen ships destroyed by energy weapons, blown apart by missiles, crushed by collision, but he had never seen anything like what was happening to his fleet now. The artificial star that the humans had created was growing larger. It pulled at his ships with invisible hands, dragging smaller vessels toward their doom. 3 of his destroyers had already been consumed by the stellar fire. Others spun helplessly as their engines fought against gravitational forces that should not exist. All ships emergency scatter pattern, he commanded. Get away from that thing! His fleet tried to spread out, but space itself seemed to be working against them. What should have been straight lines became twisted curves. Ships that should have been flying in formation found themselves on collision courses with each other. On the Soul's Pride, navigator Su Jin monitored the chaos with calm satisfaction. Her gravitational manipulation arrays were working perfectly, turning the empty space around the Velkari fleet into a maze of bent physics. Captain, she reported, enemy ships are having trouble with basic navigation. Their computer systems can't compensate for the gravitational distortions we're creating. Excellent, Captain Deho replied. Boram, are you ready with the mass conversion demonstration? Weapons Officer Boram nodded as she worked at her controls. The systems she was operating had never been tested in real battle before. They represented years of human research into the deepest mysteries of physics. Mass conversion arrays are charged, sir, ready to demonstrate controlled matter transformation. Do it, Boram activated the arrays. Energy flowed from the stellar forge through the ship's hull to projectors that could manipulate matter at the atomic level. She targeted a large asteroid floating nearby, something the size of a small moon. The Velkari watched in horror as the asteroid began to change. Its rocky surface smoothed out, then started to glow. Within seconds, the entire massive object had been converted from solid rock into pure energy. But instead of exploding outward, the energy was contained and shaped by the Soul's Pride's gravity fields. What are they doing now? Thexmar demanded. His science officer stared at his instruments in disbelief. Admiral, they just converted several million tons of matter directly into energy. But they're controlling it somehow. They're using it as a weapon. The converted energy from the asteroid became a lance of pure force that cut through space toward the Velkari fleet. Ships tried to dodge, but the beam moved faster than anything they had ever encountered. When it struck Admiral Thexmar's largest battleship, the vessel simply vanished. Not destroyed, not blown apart, but converted instantly from matter back to energy. They turned our ship into light, whispered his weapons officer. How is that possible? Captain Deho watched the results on his main screen. The demonstration was having exactly the effect he had hoped for. Fear was spreading through the Velkari fleet faster than any weapon could. Taemin, he called to engineering. Stellar forge status? Still running at only 15% capacity, Captain. We could do this all day. Jin'e, what are the enemy communications telling us? Tactical Officer Jin'e listened to the intercepted Velkari transmissions. Sir, their fleet commanders are requesting emergency orders. Some ships are asking for permission to retreat. Others want to know what they're fighting against. And Admiral Thexmar? He's trying to maintain order, but his officers are panicking. They've never encountered technology like ours. Deho nodded. It was time for the next phase of the demonstration. The humans had shown they could create stars and convert matter to energy. Now they would show what they could do with time itself. Su Jin, prepare the temporal displacement field. Target the enemy command ships. Yes, sir. Calculating local space-time distortion patterns. Su Jin's fingers moved over controls that adjusted forces most species didn't even know existed. The Soul's Pride had been designed to manipulate gravity, but gravity and time were connected in ways that Einstein had discovered centuries ago. By bending one, you could affect the other. Admiral Thexmar was trying to reorganize his scattered fleet when something impossible happened to his command ship. The bridge around him began to slow down. His officers moved like they were walking through thick liquid. Their voices became deep and slow, like recordings played at the wrong speed. But Thexmar himself was not affected. He could think and move normally while everyone around him had been slowed to a crawl. He realized with growing terror that the humans had somehow stretched time itself around his ship. On his communication screen, Captain Deho appeared again. The human looked calm and relaxed, as if he was having a normal conversation instead of fighting a battle against impossible odds. "Admiral Thexmar," Deho said, "are you beginning to understand what you're fighting?" "What have you done to my ship?" Thexmar demanded. "We've created a localized time dilation field around your command vessel. From your perspective, time is moving normally. From everyone else's perspective, you're moving very slowly. Your crew will experience the next few minutes as several hours." Thexmar looked around his bridge. His officers were frozen like statues, their movements so slow he could barely see them changing position. "This is impossible," he said. "No species has ever developed temporal manipulation technology." "No species has ever needed to," Deho replied. "Most species fight wars the way you do. Build bigger ships, make stronger weapons, train more soldiers. But humans learned long ago that the best way to win a fight is to make sure your enemy can't fight back at all." Around the Velkari fleet, more impossible things began to happen. The Soul's Pride demonstrated weapons that worked by changing the fundamental rules of reality. Ships found their hulls turning to gas as the humans altered molecular bonds. Others discovered their engines working backwards, pulling them toward the stars instead of away from them. "Your fleet has fought many battles," Deho continued, "but you've always fought against enemies who understood war the same way you do. Today you're fighting humans. We don't just build weapons. We turn the universe itself into a weapon." Chief Engineer Tayman reported from deep in the ship. "Captain, Stellar Forge is performing beautifully. All systems operating within normal parameters. We're ready for whatever comes next." Boram looked up from her weapons controls. "Sir, we've demonstrated gravitational manipulation, mass energy conversion, and temporal fields. The enemy fleet is completely scattered. What are your orders?" Deho studied the tactical display. Of the original 847 Velkari ships, less than half were still capable of fighting. The rest had been destroyed, disabled, or were running away as fast as their engines could carry them. But the demonstration was not complete yet. The aliens needed to understand that what they had seen was just the beginning of human capabilities. "Genie, open a communication channel to the entire Velkari fleet. All ships, all frequencies. Channel open, sir." Deho stood up and faced the main screen. When he spoke, his voice was carried to every ship in the enemy fleet. "Velkari warriors, this is Captain Deho of the Soul's Pride. You came here believing you understood warfare. You thought it was about numbers and firepower. You have learned that you were wrong." He paused, letting his words sink in through the translation systems. "What you have seen today is not our most powerful technology. It is simply what we built for this demonstration. Human civilization has capabilities that we have not yet shown you. We can do things to space and time that your species has never imagined." The communication ended. Throughout the Velkari fleet, the message was received in silence. Admiral Thexmar, still trapped in his slow-motion time field, realized that his invasion force had not just been defeated, it had been made obsolete. The silence that followed Captain Deho's message lasted for exactly 17 minutes. During that time, the remains of the Velkari fleet hung motionless in space, their crews trying to understand what had just happened to everything they thought they knew about war. Admiral Thexmar was still trapped in the slow time field around his command ship. He watched his officers move like statues, while his mind raced through the implications of what he had witnessed. The humans had not just defeated his fleet. They had demonstrated technologies that made his entire civilization look like children playing with toy weapons. Finally, his communications officer managed to speak. The words came out stretched and deep, like a recording played too. Slowly, Mir, all. The, man. Captain. Is requesting to speak with you, again. Thexmar nodded, though the motion would take several seconds to complete from his crew's perspective. "Put him through." Captain Deho's face appeared on the screen again. He looked exactly as calm as before, as if the destruction of half an invasion fleet was just another day's work. "Admiral Thexmar," Deho said, "I think it's time we had a more honest conversation. What do you want, human? I want you to understand something important. Your species has conquered 17 star systems by being stronger than your enemies, but you've never faced an enemy that fights the way humans do." Thexmar tried to keep his voice steady. "And how do humans fight? We don't fight at all if we can avoid it. We change the situation so that fighting becomes pointless." Deho gestured toward the tactical display that showed the scattered Velkari fleet. "Your ships came here prepared for a battle. Instead, you found a demonstration of why battles are obsolete." On the Soul's Pride, the crew continued their work with quiet efficiency. Chief Engineer Taemin monitored the stellar forge, which continued to burn steadily at minimal power. The artificial star they had created earlier was slowly consuming itself, designed to fade away harmlessly over the next few hours. "Captain," Taemin reported, "all systems remain green. The stellar forge is ready for whatever you need next." Navigator Sujin checked her gravitational manipulation arrays. "Sir, I can maintain the current space-time distortions for as long as necessary. The enemy fleet will remain unable to coordinate effectively until we release them." "Excellent work, everyone," Deho replied. Then he turned back to his conversation with the Velkari Admiral. "Admiral, your species thinks about war in terms of ships and weapons. You count hulls and compare firepower. But humans learned long ago that the most powerful weapon is knowledge. We know things about the universe that your scientists haven't discovered yet." "Such as what?" Thexmar demanded. "Such as how to turn matter into energy with perfect efficiency, how to bend space and time to our will, how to create stars wherever we need them, how to make the fundamental forces of physics work for us instead of against us." Deho paused to let that sink in, then continued. "Your invasion fleet represents the military might of 17 conquered star systems. Our ship represents the scientific knowledge of one world that refused to be conquered by anyone." Throughout the Velkari fleet, crews listened to the conversation on their communication systems. Many of them had served in multiple conquest campaigns. They had seen entire civilizations surrender when faced with Velkari military superiority. But they had never seen their own fleet rendered helpless by a single enemy vessel. "What happens now?" Thexmar asked. "That depends on you," Deho replied. "You have 3 choices. First, you can try to continue fighting. Your remaining ships can attack us again, and we will demonstrate more of our capabilities until there are no ships left. And the second choice? You can retreat. Take what's left of your fleet and leave human space. Never return and never threaten our colonies again." "And the third choice?" Deho smiled, and for the first time it looked genuine rather than grim. "You can stay and learn. The universe is full of wonders that your species has never discovered. Humans would be willing to share some of that knowledge under the right circumstances." Thexmar was quiet for a long moment. Around his bridge, his officers continued their slow-motion movements, trapped in the human time field. He could see fear in their faces, but also curiosity. The things they had witnessed today challenged everything the Velkari thought they knew about what was possible. "If we choose to learn," he asked carefully, "what would that involve?" "Cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, an end to the Velkari policy of conquest through force. Your species has many strengths, Admiral. You're excellent engineers and skilled tacticians, but you've been using those skills for the wrong purposes. And you think we could change?" "Every species can change," Deho said. "Humans used to fight wars the old way too. Ships against ships, weapons against weapons. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we learned there was a better approach." On his tactical screen, Deho could see Velkari ships throughout the fleet beginning to move again. Not to attack, but to regroup around their command vessels. The alien crews were trying to make sense of what they had experienced. "Admiral," came a voice from one of Thexmar's subordinates. "Admiral Kexthul is requesting orders. His battle group wants to know whether to prepare for another attack." Thexmar looked at his screens, showing the human ship floating calmly in space. The Soul's Pride had returned to its original configuration, looking once again like a normal warship. But he knew now that its appearance was completely misleading. "Tell Admiral Kexthul to hold position," he ordered. Then he turned back to Captain Deho. "Human Captain, if we choose to retreat, what guarantee do we have that you won't follow us? That you won't use these weapons against our home worlds?" "You have my word as a human officer," Deho replied simply. "We didn't build these weapons to conquer other species. We built them to defend ourselves against species that tried to conquer us. Your word? Admiral, if humans wanted to conquer the galaxy, we would have started doing it already. We have the technology. What we don't have is the desire. We prefer to explore and learn rather than destroy and dominate. Thexmar made his decision. I will contact the Hegemony Council and report what has happened here. This will change everything for our species. Change can be good, Admiral. Your people have great potential. You just need to point it in a better direction. The time dilation field around Thexmar's ship began to fade. His officers started moving at normal speed again, though they looked confused and disoriented. Captain Deho, Thexmar said formally, on behalf of the Velkari Hegemony, I formally withdraw our invasion fleet from human space. We will return to our territory and reconsider our policies. A wise choice, Admiral. As the Velkari fleet began its long journey home, Captain Deho stood on his bridge and watched them go. Navigator Su-Jin plotted a course back toward Earth. Chief Engineer Taemin began the shutdown sequence for the Stellar Forge. The great demonstration was over. Sir, Tactical Officer Jin'ei said, communications networks across the galaxy are already picking up reports of what happened here. Word is spreading fast, Deho nodded. That had been part of the plan. Other species needed to know that humans could not be conquered by conventional means. But more importantly, they needed to know that humans preferred cooperation to conflict. Jin'ei, prepare a message to Earth Command. Tell them the demonstration was successful. The galaxy now knows that humanity has changed the rules of warfare forever. As the Soul's Pride turned toward home, its crew knew they had accomplished something historic. They had not just won a battle. They had announced to the galaxy that a new kind of civilization had emerged, one that could turn the universe itself into a tool for peace. The age of conquest through superior firepower was ending. The age of human stellar engineering had begun.